just as, because of these impacts, globalization is changing Internet 2's mission, strategy, and focus. And I suspect that that can be said for all of you who are involved in the development of research and education networks in Asia. And so we have seen and will see a significant shift in our focus as we move forward. Almost every element of that, in some way or other, touching at the global level and impacting the global level. So I want to talk just very briefly about the areas of focus for Internet 2 over what I think will be the next 3, 5, 7 years. I doubt if anything I say here will be at all different than what you are addressing within your own national NRENs. And so we at Internet 2 have sort of 7 primary priorities moving forward. The first and foremost for us is sort of where we have always been, and that is that is working on continuing to advance the state of networking and network services leadership. We have this extraordinary opportunity in the United States as a result of what is the first large-scale and significant investment of United States government funding in our research and education network that will allow us over the next 3 years, mostly in the next 2 years, to build out a network infrastructure that goes beyond that we've been able to have in the United States for a long time. This new network project is roughly $100 million US project with extraordinary participation and leverage from a number of our commercial members and partners that will deploy 15,000 new miles of optical fiber IRUs, which combined with about 2,500 miles of a network that exists that serves the northwestern part of the United States, creates an 18,000-mile owned IRU-based fiber network infrastructure in the United States. This new project will have an optical switching layer deployed that represents a multiple orders of magnitude increase over our current capacity. The optical layer of this network will have essentially 8.8 terabits of optical capacity, on which we currently have the funding in this project to deploy a single 100 gig network across that whole footprint, but enormous capability now with a foundation in place to be able to use that infrastructure to deploy scores of new spatial purpose network services across the United States. And it introduces for us, while the rationale for the new federal investment is actually to enable us to move in a different direction in Internet 2. And that is and we'll talk about this more in a second, to essentially connect several tens of thousands, in fact, elementary, secondary, and small colleges, high schools and small colleges to our network, to connect public libraries in the United States to our network, to connect community hospitals to the network, and our emergency services organizations in the United States, to effectively now create a public service broadband network infrastructure in the United States that will run on the same infrastructure as our R&E networking program in the United States, and will provide to our public service organizations, those that have missions to promote public value in the United States, to be able to have access to the enormous value that comes from having a network capacity that does not present a barrier to the development of useful and creative advanced applications. And while we have that obligation, and this represents a new direction for us, we also have at the same time this enormous new capacity to support science and research, well beyond anything we have ever had. And we see for our members the opportunity for those benefits to grow as our scale grows with this new service opportunity that we have. Now, I'm going to go back here just a second then and talk briefly about some other things that we're focusing on. I talked about, about item number 3 here, this new network community that we're building in the United States is called US UCAN. I think Steve Wallace from Internet 2 had a session earlier in the week where he talked in more depth about this program, and I know some of you were there and had a chance to ask questions. So I won't talk a lot about this other than to say that it represents a very significant opportunity for us in the United States to create a continuum of focus in advanced application development between traditional research and education conducted in our biggest U.S. universities with the development of applications that support much broader public needs in the United States in areas like provisioning of health care and deploying high-value applications in our public libraries across the United States to facilitate national goals. So that represents a very interesting confluence of projects. We also are moving now for Internet 2 in new directions as a result of what I think represents a need to be able for our university members to be able to provide services at a level of scale that they've not traditionally been provided. It has been sort of a historical artifact in the United States that the whole issue of building technology infrastructure exists at the university level. Everybody has their own email system, everybody has their own web environment, everybody has their own computers. We have a history of aggregating and doing joint projects in areas like supercomputers, where we've been able to save significant amount of money, and we have been able to create an organization like Internet 2, which has helped us drive down the cost of research networking capacity. And now there's a strong interest in our members for us to begin to move into the development of services above the network, to provide storage, to provide computational capacity, to provide middleware as a service. And this will now represent a major goal for Internet 2. We also have a significant amount of work ahead of us in doing what I call sort of strengthening our ecosystem. One of the things that is often not understood by people who are outside the research and education community, when they see the enormous value that we've created in as a result of having our advanced networks, and they see the enormous amount of commercial development and innovation that has occurred around this, is that somehow or other we are this highly organized system that has some top-down organizational structure that enables us to do all this work. Well, all of you in the room who've been involved in this for a long time know better than that. You know that this is a system that's comprised, that is in many senses a federated system that's comprised of campus networks and networks that are aggregated beyond that, and regional networks and networks at the state or the provincial level, which collapse into national networks, which are then served by this increasingly complicated global fabric. And in order to continue to sustain the level of innovation that we've been able to achieve so far, it is important for us to continue to nurture that very complicated ecosystem. We know we can never manage it, but we know we have to sustain it. And in the United States, that has been a particular challenge over the last 4 to 6 years, and we hope to be able to spend some more time focusing on that. Very clearly, our primary goal, among our primary goals, is assuring that our network assets are used effectively to support our research community. We want to spend more time engaging our industrial partners, but each and every piece of this, in one way or another, impacts and is impacted by the globalization of networking, of the internet. And so for us, among our primary objectives at Internet 2, is to be able to step up and deal with these complicated global issues and to assure that our members are able to participate in this increasingly global research and education and science environment effectively. And so it creates several new elements of programming for us, and the need to focus more on several that we've been doing for quite some time. Among those are ensuring access to this rapidly growing and developing distributed science facility like the Large Hadron Collider and ITER and Gemini and the increasing deployment of joint collaborative large-scale telescopes, and the fact that we're collaborating across the whole globe in doing the kind of science we do in space right now. We also are confronted, I think, right now in the United States with Internet 2 by the fact that large numbers of our Internet 2 campus members are deploying campus programs overseas throughout the world, in South America, in the Middle East, and particularly, I think, more recently in Asia.